we didn't care about. We get betrayed by people that were formerly close to us, right? And then we got betrayed by them. So if you're very judgmental of betrayal, and you want to rid your life of betrayal, and you're so focused yourself on not betraying anyone, then the only thing you're going to end up experiencing is the world around you is going to be full of betrayal. Until you no longer judge betrayal negatively, you have not learned unconditional love. I'll repeat that. Until you no longer judge betrayal negatively, you have not yet learned unconditional love. You can apply this concept to virtually anything: pleasure and pain, light and dark, our fear of the dark. Darkness is not the absence of light. A lot of people think in physics that's what it is. It's not. In physics, I can tell you it's not. Darkness is the absorbed condition of light. If I turn all the lights off and close all the windows and had no light coming from the outside into this room, made it literally a black box, vent a black box, there would still be the molecules and the elements that are in this ambient air, right? So it's going to be nitrogen, it's going to have some oxygen, and each of those will be emitting photons. Those photons are going to be a very small level of light, but the light is still there. Once I flip on the light switch in this room, all that's happening is I'm magnifying and amplifying the amplitude of the light's reflection, and concomitantly or simultaneously its absorption also. Darkness is not the absence of light, just as evil is not the absence of good. It's really critical that we start to understand how we interact with our own universe. And psychedelics is one way. It's one way. I didn't use psychedelics to go through my spiritual awakening. I was drawing geometry, and drawing geometry and meditation and breath work was a very, very psychedelic practice for me. Your brain can emit its own, it can release its own DMT. It's a natural occurring substance in the body. Psilocybin is something different, but I think psilocybin is probably the easiest thing. It's kind of really the true gateway, I would say, to psychedelics. And then you kind of go through these different, aspects, whether it's ketamine or acid, LSD, and then all the way up to ayahuasca. And not everyone, it's not for everyone. It's one thing I really want to be clear on. But what it does do is it helps you to step out of your normal world of conditioning bias and start to reframe your existence. And reframing is like akin to relearning. You remember the movie Empire Strikes Back, right? One of my favorite scenes is when Luke Skywalker, it starts off and Luke Skywalker's got Yoda, he's hovering, he's actually meditating, he's lifting him, right, using this levitation technique to basically make Yoda levitate along with a bunch of rocks. And then all of a sudden his ship that was, kind of on the dry part of the swamp ends up sinking into the swamp. So then he's like, Master, what am I gonna do? Yoda says, oh, you can get it out, right? Just like levitate it out type thing. So he goes over, tries to lift it out, he can't lift it out. It can't come out. And so he comes back, he says, it's too large, Master Yoda, I can't do it. Remember this, if you think you can, or you think you can't, you will be right. So after he fails, Yoda goes over, without even thinking about it much, just lifts it out the swamp, puts it back on dry land. And what does Luke Skywalker say to Yoda? Master, I can't believe it. And what does Yoda say back to him? And that is why you fail. Our belief system is the cage of the matrix. The matrix is the belief system. It's the self-limiting beliefs. People ask me all the time, what would be the one thing, if you could, to change the world? What would you do that could possibly change it super rapidly? And I said, help people understand, and myself as well, fully, that there are no limitations, and to rid myself of all negative self-narratives. And then also to learn acceptance of my own dark aspects. I'm not afraid of people that have darkness because everybody has equal dark and equal light. That's another thing that I had to basically finally come up to. I used to think, oh, well, I do all these checkmark things in society, I'm good, I'm a better person than somebody else, and it's this big competition, I'm gonna go to heaven first. By the way, there's no such thing. Heaven and hell is right here. if you think you can, or you think you can't, you will be right. The transcendence is when you finally realize enlightenment. Enlightenment, to me, I truly believe it is when your expression of love supersedes and exceeds your desire for one objective truth. We've all been in relationships, and in those relationships, we've seen things go down that have not been necessarily positive. And sometimes they were irreparable, and sometimes they couldn't possibly have been repaired. But one thing is for certain. After having been in several relationships in my lifetime, the one thing I know has to be prioritized above and beyond all things otherwise is, when there's a fight, my relationship with this person is more important to me than being right. You gotta let that go. You have to understand that the other person has their own view of what the truth is. And there's no such thing as objective truth. It doesn't matter what the circumstance is. I can tell you right now, I had a friend whose son was killed tragically in the Sri Lanka bombings. He was one of the CEOs of my portfolio. And he wanted me to meet his son, who was an 11-year-old kid, who was already planning to go to medical school. He was like super advanced. He went to visit his grandmother in Sri Lanka, and while he was there at the Taj Mahal Hotel, he got blown up, literally hit by shrapnel by a suicide bomber. He was the only person killed, an 11-year-old boy. And imagine the horror of his father, who receives a telephone call right in the middle of the night, and basically telling him, your son has an open chest wound. And he was an ER doctor, trained. So he was trying to get them to massage the heart of his son after his chest was completely torn open. And imagine the feeling of helplessness. And I wept with him for hours when he's telling me this story. Whose fault was it? To the suicide bomber's family, the suicide bomber was a hero. This was retaliation for what had happened 3,000 miles away in New Zealand when a mosque was attacked by a neo-Nazi. And they felt they were in a jihad. They felt that they were in a holy war. So the suicide bomber is venerated as a hero. And yet the only victim besides the suicide bomber is an innocent 11-year-old boy. We look at it from this standpoint and say, oh, that guy that was a suicide bomber, he's evil. He's pure evil. The major bias that we all face in this world is we all believe we have a hero bias. We all want to be the hero. I'm not afraid of people that have darkness within them. I'm only afraid of people that believe they have no darkness. Because those are the ones that believe that they take on this persona of the hero, and as a result, they do some pretty whacked out stuff. When we're not in balance, we have to basically stay always in fighting mode and battling things. And we see these things happen with genocides, and the only solution is, oh, we have to wipe out these people. Right? And it's all done under the auspices of the public good or the public benefit. It's never done from the perspective of the villain seeing themselves as the villain, because villains always believe themselves to be heroes. So as you go into the spiritual path, the psychedelics, the understanding of the transcendence, realizing that it's love that eventually wins over judgment. And the expression of love is what matters the most. We're here only for two reasons. It's just like that song by Nat King Cole. There was a boy. You've probably heard it before. We're here to learn how to love and how to be loved in return. That's it. So tomorrow, as we go throughout the exercises and breath work, keep that in mind. Start to write down also, if you could, to start to jot down notes of what are your self-limiting negative belief systems. What is the volume of your cage of the growth of your consciousness? What's causing that limitation? And try to understand the root cause. So it's kind of like my kids. When they ask me a question, they'll say, Dad, why? And then I give them an answer and they say, but why? And then I give them an answer and they say, but why? And then another, and then like 5 whys. And I'm like, and then finally I get to the 5th why and I'm like, because. And that somehow works for them. But getting down to that root cause and asking the whys all the way down is something that can be very, very powerful. And the moment you can start to identify those self-limiting thoughts and beliefs is when you can start to address those things. Your consciousness can only expand to the volume of the cage of your own belief system. And that belief system is your matrix. Thank you very much.